One of the things that continues to amaze me about dealing with trauma, complex PTSD, really high acuity cases like I do is that people still think that trauma, whether it be in childhood, adulthood, later in life, that people still think that it's not going to affect them in some way. And I realize that the whole point, likely, of getting some PTSD treatment or trauma therapy treatment is so it doesn't affect you and control your whole life. But there's so many people, even people that come to my office, even people that reach out online, that don't quite realize the effect that it has on you. Let's just look at this in kind of a neurobiological way, part of the brain, which is my favorite part about EMDR therapy. There's absolutely other things that we need to treat. There's other things that we need to talk about and process and realize that our basic belief system is causing us problem. But a lot of that stuff will come from the same issues. So let's look back at the brain. This limbic system, that fight or flight part of the brain, it will always take over logic. If it's activated and it thinks that you're in a fight or flight situation, it will always take over your logic. Now that doesn't always mean you do something stupid or something you hadn't thought of before. I think going through scenarios and getting ready for things actually helps program those responses. But no matter what, you're still going to be in this fight or flight part of the brain. And it will always take over the logic. One of the things that we know about the hippocampus, the amygdala, some different parts of the limbic system is when they're activated, part of the prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, we used to think that it was slowed down or not used as well. Yeah, it turns out that at times when this amygdala activation, this limbic system activation goes on, this emergency mode, your prefrontal cortex is inhibited. It's not even used. It doesn't ask its opinion. It does that because it doesn't have time to. It must react to the emergency right now. If you're driving down the road like I'm doing and somebody crams their brakes in front of you and all you have is the prefrontal cortex, a thinking part of the brain, if you haven't planned for that before, it might be thinking, oh look, the brake lights are on, the distance is closing, we should evaluate some options here. I'm in trouble. I need a part of the brain to respond to me, and it can be programmed into the prefrontal cortex, but I need part of that brain to respond and just have me hit the brakes. And how many times does somebody, maybe you, see the brake lights in front of you, cram your brakes, you didn't even think about stopping, you just did it. Some of that's pre-programming, yes. Some of that might be part of the fight or flight part of the brain. I need it to kick in. You can probably tell a difference by how you acted otherwise. But so many times we know when this limbic system is so chronically used or so acutely used, it's such a big thing, that it's going to take over. If your brain thinks you're in a similar situation, and that doesn't mean it has to be the same place or the same type of situation. If your brain detects anything from a traumatic memory, sight, sound, smell, belief, feeling, location, weather, colors, it can be very minute detail. But if your brain thinks because of whatever it's being fed is an emergency situation, you're going to go into fight or flight, it's going to take over that logic part of the brain. This is why we have some of the reactions that we do. It's not going to excuse us from some of the overreactions. Let me give you an example. Let's say your teenager, your kid did something that 1,000 times you've asked them not to do. And for whatever that was, yes, you have to take care of it. Yes, you have to be the parent. Yes, you have to take care of business, teach them. But if whatever that was reminds your brain of something traumatic, if whatever that was kicks that limbic system into thinking that you need to go into fight or flight mode, are you really surprised that you screamed at them so loudly as if you were in danger? Are you really surprised that your body was shaking and sweating and you had this adrenaline dump, even though it wasn't that big of a deal? Are you really surprised that you overreact as if it's in a full emergency? Now, this doesn't give permission to do that or make it okay. If this is what's going on for you, you're going to have to work on it. But are you really surprised that your brain and your body react as if there's been some kind of emergency? And I don't even have to describe those in detail or tell you how bad they are. Because when that does happen to you and you overreact, whether it's against somebody or it's a location, or it's driving down the road, or it's something you heard, you know that you overreacted because 10 minutes later you feel like an idiot. You feel like an a-hole for overreacting with anger. You feel weak for overreacting with anxiety or depression or guilt. Now, maybe some of these things we need to work with through things like REBT and dealing with your basic belief system that's been put there over decades of your life. Or maybe we need to do some EMDR and deal with the traumatic responses that you keep having. EMDR, you've heard me talk about it, or you can go back and research eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Are you really that surprised that you have a traumatic response? Are you really that surprised that you overreact? And I said surprised, not okay with. I said, are you really surprised? Not, it's okay, keep doing it. Keep ruining your relationships. Keep pushing away your family. Keep drinking too much to cover it. Keep hating the public all the time. Because what you saw was a small percentage of how people do treat other people poorly. But you've turned it into everybody. Keep staying away from events that you want to go to. Keep scaring your family and ruining vacations. Keep going home sweaty because you couldn't handle traffic. Keep going home over the top angry because your boss did something or a coworker did something again. Keep those overreactions. Keep them or realize that they're probably coming from a place that might be trauma informed. Keep them or realize that they're coming from a reaction, that your brain is trying to do brain things. Keep overreacting or realize that you might be in fight or flight mode. Keep overreacting or message me and get some help. Get some help from somebody who spent decades overreacting and ruining everything before figuring out what fixed it. Keep overreacting or get some help.